All right. It is May 1st, 2025. We are going to be going over the review immediately. Pretty much price action here was very simple for today. Let's go on to the 5 minute and kind of go over it from the open. So open was right here, 1800. So right after that, there's really nothing to do initially until a new breaker forms because the nearest sweepable is literally here. So you would have to drop all the way down here for you to be able to take any other trades. So quite literally nothing to do. Oh, actually, no, I'm lying. Sorry. It would have to drop here for the nearest sweepable because the breaker is here. And this is a high, low, higher, high, making this a sweepable. So there's nothing to do. We then create a breaker here on the 5 minute. So CISD. For that CISD, we have high, low, high, giving us our sweepable. If we drag that out, gives us the beautiful sweep right here. You could have, after the CISD, you have a sweepable here. It sweeps. And I'm sure there's a 1 minute breaker here. It sweeps again and it fails. So you would have gotten chopped up here during the Asia session, which, I mean, honestly, after an Asia session, after a day like this, I wouldn't trade Asia session regardless because this is to be expected. But anyways, you do want this sweepable. It is the first sweepable of the day. So first breaker, first sweepable. That is something important. After that sweep, we get a breaker and it's our first breaker. And so we mark that out. The breaker has outside candle, IFEG, fair value gap, and it closed on the first time. So this is one that is expected to go to 4 standard deviations. Foreshadowing, it doesn't, but that's the expectation. Also, this line right here is that huge breaker we had when Trump was speaking for the tariffs. So my immediate thoughts today were that we were going to go up and we were going to, at the very least, take that. And after that, it could go higher. I just didn't know really how much higher or, if it was going to continue or fully reverse from there immediately. But anyways, all right, cool. So we then have the CISD here, right? Break. And then high, low, high, giving us this as the sweepable. And then after that, we have this as a break. Then we have the high, low, high as the sweepable. And then we have this as a breaker. Well, no, sorry. We have this as a breaker. And then high, low, high, giving us sweepable like so. And then that gets swept one more time here, giving us B2, pull it 2. And then we'll come back. So on the 1 minute, going back to where we were originally, which was over here. Yeah, so we have the CISD, we then have the sweep, we then create a breaker to the upside, giving us a second breaker to be following from the London. We then have this sweep here and a fresh breaker, giving us another one to follow. So all of these ones are in play at the moment. And then here we have a sweepable that fails one time. Okay. And, oh, actually put that wrong. Sorry. So the sweepable is here, creates a breaker here, fails. So now this is B2, bullet number 2. It confirms right here on this candle. And right after it confirms, of course, it crashes down. So if you are live on this day and your entry is from down here, as soon as this fails up here, you need to be prepared that this is going to go all the way back to this stop loss. Why? This breaker comes out of this breaker. This breaker comes out of this breaker. This breaker comes out of this breaker. Okay. Now, all of those breakers come out of this breaker right here. So it's a staircase. That comes out of that, comes out of that, comes out of that, comes out of that. As soon as the dominoes start falling on the very top, you need to be prepared that the dominoes are going to fall all the way to where everything started from. Okay. So I already posted a video about the pivot points and explained that on, I believe it was the very latest class video I had. So anyways, this meets 2 standard deviations. This meets 2, 2.5. This doesn't get quite there. This doesn't get quite there. This doesn't get quite there. So only 2 out of the 3 made it there. We didn't see this 2 fail. That's a pivotal point for us to expect lower prices. I talked about it on live stream. I took this long here because that's when I logged onto the computer. So I took it when we came down here and it failed. And once it failed, I was, ready to just flip my buys and start going short. But the problem was that, unfortunately for me, I wasn't I wasn't quite ready to. Oh, sorry, I put the B2 at the wrong place. B2 goes here. My bad. I wasn't quite ready to take anything else, and unfortunately, there really wasn't anything besides this breaker. So let's break this down real fast and then be done because there's nothing else for the rest of the day. The day was dookie. The CISD is here, right to the downside. So once those two fail, you immediately pivot the other way. Okay. Once one side fails, you pivot to the other way, and the other way it's likely going to win. So fails, CISD, low, high, low, giving us our sweepable right here. And after we get the sweep on the sweepable, like so, we create our first breaker to the downside. This is 930. That's why I didn't take it, because I wasn't trying to take a 930 open breaker, but it did make it to 4 standard deviations. After that, I turned around, took the high again, and creates another breaker of this sweep. Now, because this bullet did make it all the way to 4 standard deviations, this still counts as bullet 1 technically, as far as you being able to take a trade out of it. So takes it out, bullet comes, and the gradient on this bullet is inside candle, no IFG, no SIBI. So those are not good. He did close the first time, so that's good, at least. And so this is a B at most. And what happens? He goes to 2 standard deviations and it turns around, which is literally what I talked about on my course. I talked about the grading of the breakers. So this did exactly what it was expected to. He swept all of this, took everything out, which was an hourly sweepable. And then he turned around and then did this. There was no way to get into this long, so we won't even break it down because there just wasn't anything here to get into the long. There also wasn't anything here to get into the long. And then I don't believe there was, let me double check. CIZ here, high, low, high. So sweepable is here on the 5-minute. All right, so there might have been a long here, but the long was short-lived. Yeah, so high, low, high. And then this breaker confirms. Now, this breaker, like if you look at the size, it's just massive. It's 300 ticks, 75 points. Anything that's like 75 points or above, I tend to stick to 50 points at most for my breakers, but anything above that, I'm either not taking, or if I do take it, it has to be heavily discounted on a valid 5-minute play. And there's no valid 5-minute play here, right? Sweep happens in this candle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candles until the BC forms and is way up there. This BC is not holding. If this BC is not holding, it means we're likely just going to come all the way down and take all of it. So yeah, that's pretty much the breakdown. I mean, there really wasn't anything. As far as shorts go, there was no way to get into the short because the CISZ happens right here, right? Low. And then this whole thing is a high right here on this candle. So there was no sweep on that. It literally missed it by a hair and then it just dropped like crazy right here. So yeah, that's pretty much the review. A rather boring day, to be honest with you. Unless you took the win on this short right here, you literally would have sat through the rest of the session doing nothing. There was nothing to do here. There was a, well, okay, let me do the last trade. My bad. This is a sweepable on the 5-minute. Somebody asked me about this on the Discord and I just told them why I'm not taking it. But yeah, that's a sweepable, right? And this is a breaker. Again, 324 ticks, meaning it's 75 plus. I'm just not taking it. Like, we went all the way up here. We came all the way down. And this breaker is literally like a quarter, if not more, than the size of the whole daily expansion we've had so far. This thing is not expanding to 2.5 plus. It might make it to like 1.5, maybe to 2 at the most. And then it will turn around. So I'm not trying to get into a trade that only has a max potential of 2 standard deviations when I know I could potentially find a trade that is going to be tighter later on. So again, you either have to take a heavily discounted entry, which is something like this. But on the 5-minute, the only discounted entry would have been this BC. But this BC doesn't share this low here, this wick on the low, right? Like you see the low of this not being shared here. So after the sweep, which is here, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is fine. But then it has a really tiny BC, and this low of the BC is not shared by the actual low of the breaker, meaning it can sweep this no problem, and it can still stay intact on the breaker. That's always, well, not always, but most of the time it's going to get swept. Essentially, it's going to be a failing BC, which also means that this low is likely going to be a weaker low. So it's going to be liquidity for later on because it's a lower probability trade. But yeah, that's the review. I thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, give me some feedback, please, on the day and the review. Thank you. Bye.